Lou Gross here. Headlines coming up.
About money management, I'm Marshall Lowe.
Day and night around the clock, it's your news. You get it all when you set your dial to All News 88. WCBS New York. WCBS New York.
These are the headline stories as we come up to 11 o'clock at All News 88. We're still waiting for some word that the hostages have been flown out. All we have right now is a report from Reuters that a police official says that some of the hostages have boarded one of the two Algerian airliners in Tehran. Other stories, of course, today on News 88, the inauguration of Ronald Reagan as President of the United States. This hour, we will be going to Washington live for the swearing-in of Mr. Reagan and Mr. Bush, and, of course, the inaugural addresses. And we'll have our own Steve Flanders there in Washington to report back to us. Also ahead on WCBS, a Coast Guard official says a tanker grounded in New York Harbor is no longer in danger of sinking or spilling its cargo of oil. Art Athens will have a report. Many people in northern New Jersey forced out today, the result of 5 separate fires in 3 counties. We'll tell you about them. And Newark police are continuing to search for a security guard who killed a man, allegedly, and wounded another man after they accused him of sleeping on the job yesterday. Now CBS News at 11.
CBS News. They may be on their way. Reports say an Algerian plane has just taken off from Tehran Airport, but there's still no official word on whether the American hostages were on board. I'm Deborah Potter reporting on the CBS Radio Network. The latest from Dan Raviv, who's keeping up with developments from London.
Reporters who are not allowed any closer to the airport than a police roadblock several hundred yards away spoke with a top aide to Iran's prime minister, who was driving toward the VIP terminal about an hour ago. Ahmad Azizi said the hostages would be flown out very soon. He said Algeria had informed Iran that the frozen Iranian assets had been transferred out of American control. The reporters also saw some limousines driving by and believed they spotted the 3 Algerian diplomats who had served as go-betweens in the negotiations. Informants inside the terminal told foreign news agencies that they could see a minibus with its windows blacked out pulled up alongside one of the Algerian airliners that are expected to carry the hostages. The informants saw boarding steps, a gangway, pushed up against the door of the plane. One report says the other Algerian airliner has just taken off. It's not clear if the hostages, or some of them, were aboard that plane. Dan Raviv, CBS News, London.
The arrangements for the release of the hostages were finally worked out this morning. A last-minute hitch was overcome when Iran agreed to a British formula for calculating the interest owed on its frozen assets. Then the billions of dollars were transferred into an escrow account at the Bank of England, the money coming under the control of the Bank of Algeria. That was the final step the United States had to take to complete its side of the deal. The Algerians then formally notified Iran that the money was ready and waiting, and Iran then began the preparations for letting the hostages go. Under the agreement, Iran will not be able to touch the money until the 52 Americans have safely departed. So far, there's no confirmation that they've done so, but all signs are pointing in that direction. More news after this.
We'll pay you $50 when you start cooking better the Amana way. Right now, till February 28th, you can buy the Amana Touchmatic 2 radar range and get a $50 rebate. Plus, you get the Amana radar range's exclusive Rotowave cooking system. But remember, February 28th is the last day to buy the Amana Touchmatic 2 radar range to get a $50 rebate. So see your participating Amana dealer today. You'll be cooking better the Amana way. Plus, you'll be getting $50 back.
Running a ski lodge is a family affair. It takes all of us working together to keep it going. So when the cold and flu season hits, it's good to know we've got our Bayer. Bayer aspirin is the only pain reliever our family uses. We've never found anything we could buy that works one bit better to relieve the aches, fever, and sore throat pain. Believe me, in our family, when a cold or flu makes the rounds, it's rest, fluids, and all we need is Bayer.
Use only as directed.
The inauguration of the 40th President of the United States is just about an hour away. Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter will be driving up to Capitol Hill together after meeting at the White House along with their wives. The latest from Neil Strasser.
This symbol of the civility and the transition of power in this government is just about complete. The reception at the White House, the coffee, the Vice President-elect, members of the Congress have already come out, all wearing their club coats, their striped pants, striped gray ties. And now here is Mrs. Reagan, the minority leader now of the Senate, Robert Byrd, Mrs. Reagan wearing a bright red dress, a small hat to match. We're waiting now President Carter, who may have been denied his last chance to speak as president and announce that the hostages are truly free, because we only have those reports that one plane has taken off so far. Now,
Here's that.
the president walks out, says nothing. In his gray club coat, Mr. Reagan with him, both looking rather serious, no smiles. They did not stop to pose for photographers. Go right straight to the limousine that's pulled up to the front, this north portico here. And just across the way, of course, on Pennsylvania Avenue is the reviewing stand where President Reagan will come back to view his inaugural parade. Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, is also in this big, long limousine, which bears the seal of the President of the United States, in which they will ride up Pennsylvania Avenue to the Capitol, to the West Front, where Ronald Reagan will take the oath of office. A long motorcade with many dignitaries in it. The day, you couldn't have had a better day for an inauguration. Sunny, temperature in the 50s, away from President Carter as his limousine pulls away from the White House. His limousine pulls away from the White House for the last time. He will be back here, we're sure, as a visitor, but never again as the President of the United States. And we can't help but wonder how he's been feeling these past several weeks. While the inauguration stand was going up, the reviewing stand across the way here, the view from the living quarters of it must be very good, and it must have been quite a distressing thought all this time. And now the motorcade is beginning to pull out toward Pennsylvania Avenue, and Mr. Carter and Mr. Reagan are heading for the transition of the presidency of the United States. It's Neil Strasser, CBS News at the White House.
On Wall Street at this hour, the Dow Jones average is up 1.36, volume 10,260,000 shares, and the Dow Jones average at 972.35. I'm Deborah Potter, CBS News.
I'm Gil Gross, All News 88, WCBS News Time 11:06, and let's repeat that story that we have from Associated Press, where officials of Iran are saying that one of the two Algerian planes at Tehran's Mehrabat airport has taken off. It is not known, though, if the 52 American hostages are aboard. The second Algerian plane is being prepared for takeoff, and despite the blackout imposed during the Iran-Iraq war, the officials say the runway lights are on at the Tehran airport, which, of course, would indicate that something is going on there. Now, these are unconfirmed reports. We were told there would be a presidential statement when it is confirmed that the planes are off, but with Mr. Reagan and Mr. Carter right now in a limousine on the trip to Capitol Hill for the inaugural ceremonies, we're not sure that we will indeed get that statement. In fact, it could be announced very dramatically as part of the inaugural ceremonies. So stay with us at All News 88. The ceremonies are coming up this hour, and we'll have them for you at WCBS. And we'll be back with the weather and more news after this.
I'm Mario Perillo of Perillo Tours, and I want to tell you why thousands of people book my tours of Italy a year in advance. I've been sending tours to Italy and only Italy for more than 36 years. Perillo Tours takes you to all the must-see sites, and many that most travelers never get to, all for less than $100 a day. My tours fly only on Pan Am 747s in wide-bodied comfort and stay at only first-class deluxe hotels. What's more, my 16-day escorted tours save you more than $700 a person. I'm booking my April through October vacation trips now, and I'd like to send you a free Perillo brochure while choice dates are still open. So see your agent or call me. In New York, 212-584-8300. 212-584-8300. Out of state, call toll-free 800-431-1515. 800-431-1515.
WCBS News Time, 8 minutes after 11 o'clock. I'm Gil Gross, and good morning. Welcome to All News 88. This could be quite an hour. We have a report now from the Pars news agency, that is the official state-run news agency in Iran, that the hostages would most likely be leaving within this half hour. In other words, sometime between now and 11:30. We have a report from Iran, from Iranian officials, that one of the two Algerian planes has taken off. We do not know if the hostages were aboard that plane, though. The second Algerian 727 is being readied. The airport lights are on at Merabat Airport in Tehran. And again, the Pars news agency, the official news agency of Iran, is saying that the hostages will most likely be leaving Iran on one of those Algerian planes sometime this half hour. Now, Mr. Reagan and Mr. Carter are at this very moment in a limousine headed from the White House to Capitol Hill for the inaugural ceremonies. We could have something very dramatic on our hands this half hour. We could have the announcement of the release of the hostages being made very possibly by Mr. Carter as part of Mr. Reagan's inauguration ceremony. So stay with us. This could be history in the making this hour, certainly. The weather, to get to more prosaic matters for a moment, it's going to turn cloudy in Midtown this afternoon. I'm not sure you'll mind that much because our high will be in the low 40s, a very nice, mild day for this time of year. Tonight, cloudy with a low temperature in the upper teens. Tomorrow, partly sunny. Our high tomorrow in the mid-30s. 39 degrees now. That is 4 degrees Celsius. Northeast wind at 6 miles an hour. And alternate side of the street parking regulations are in effect today. They are back in effect, so make sure you watch where you park. WCBS News Time is now 10 minutes after 11 o'clock. Well, they did it before, and they're doing it again. Atlantic Appliance and General Electric joining forces once again for GE's fabulous inventory clearance, a unique savings opportunity you should not miss. Because not only will you get those incredible low prices that have made Atlantic Appliance so famous in Yorktown Heights, but you get very substantial cash savings from General Electric on selected GE models. And we'll tell you more about Atlantic Appliance later today. 39 degrees, it is partly sunny, and we have a special report coming up from CBS News.
Now, from CBS News, this Net Alert special report.
I'm Rob Armstrong, CBS News, New York. The British news service Reuters quotes the official Pars news agency as saying the 52 American hostages will be flown from Iran within the next half hour. CBS News is in contact with the airport in Tehran, and at the airport we are told that the hostages are right now having tea in preparation for their departure. The high drama of resolving the 444-day-old hostage crisis was played out literally in the final hours of the Carter administration. Bankers and diplomats and government officials worked literally around the clock, as one White House official put it, accomplishing in days what ordinarily would have taken months. To repeat, the British news service Reuters, quoting the official Pars news agency, says that the 52 American hostages will be flown from Iran within the next half hour. We are told that they are right now having tea at the Tehran Airport VIP lounge. Rob Armstrong, CBS News, New York.
WCBS News Time, 11 minutes after 11 o'clock. This could be a very exciting hour with the inauguration and the imminent release of the hostages. Stay with us at All News 88. We'll have live reports. As a matter of fact, we'll go to the News 88 Washington Bureau in a couple of minutes and update the story from there. Locally, the Coast Guard now planning to tow a leaking tanker out of New York Harbor to a dry dock for repairs, and News 88 Art Athens has details.
The 621-foot tanker Concho apparently struck something as it left Exxon's docks in Bayonne yesterday loaded with 8 million gallons of number 6 heating oil. After noticing an oil leak, the captain requested permission to go aground, and he did so about 1,000 yards off Brooklyn's shore in Gravesend Bay. A Coast Guard spokesman says the danger of a major oil spill loomed as the ship began listing heavily.
Taking on water through the portholes and through the sanitation system. Earlier this evening, we sent some of our pumps and some of our damage control crews from our vessels here on board the Concho and have since plugged the leaks and have started to reverse the flooding.
Well, all the leaks now plugged. The Coast Guard says the danger is past and the oil is being pumped into another barge. A thin oil slick covers Lower Harbor from the Verrazano Bridge to the Statue of Liberty, but the Coast Guard puts the total spill at only a few hundred gallons. This is Art Athens.
WCBS News Time is 11:13. It is 39 degrees, partly sunny. I'm Gil Gross. In a remarkable dovetailing of historical moments, the release of the hostages seems to be coming almost exactly at the same time as the inauguration ceremonies. We will update the story from our News 88 Washington Bureau in a minute. This is WCBS New York.
This is my city, the big city, where it's all happening. Say New York, and everyone knows you're talking about the biggest and the best. Yeah, New York. That says it all. And in this town, all you have to say is hotel bar, and everybody knows you're talking about butter. Great tasting farm fresh butter. And now that same name, hotel bar, has become the smart choice for margarine as well. Yeah, Hotel Bar, a New York tradition for 96 years. And now it stands for New York's premium margarine, too. The choice is yours. Hotel Bar butter or Hotel Bar margarine, or both. The way I look at it, that's freedom of choice. Hotel Bar butter or margarine, freedom of choice. Isn't that what New York's all about?
Hotel Bar Butter and Margarine, freedom of choice, is available at Foodtown and Pioneer supermarkets. It's 11:14. This is All News 88. I'm Gil Gross at WCBS on what will be a very, very memorable January 20th, 1981. For almost exactly as Ronald Reagan is ready to take office as President of the United States and Mr. Carter is ready to relinquish the reins of power, the American hostages apparently finally about to be released in Iran. The planes to be taking off very soon will go to the News 88 Washington Bureau now, and Les Woodruff for an update report.
This is Les Woodruff in Washington. President Carter and President-elect Ronald Reagan have left the White House. The motorcade is just about to reach the Capitol, where in 45 minutes, Ronald Reagan will be sworn in as the 40th President of the United States. In the meantime, Reuters reports and CBS News reports the hostages are still at the Tehran airport waiting to leave for their flight to freedom. My colleague Wes Vernon is at the State Department and can bring us up to date on the process, the protocol process that will take place when those hostages actually leave. Wes?
Les, you almost get the impression the State Department will be the last source to acknowledge release of the hostages, though the State Department, of course, has an official seal about it. State Department spokesman David Passage says when the planes take off, the Algerian ambassador to Iran contacts the Algerian Foreign Ministry in Algiers, which in turn informs the U.S. negotiating team there, and that team, headed by Warren Christopher, then informs the Secretary of State. And at that point, the State Department makes the announcement, makes it official. Passage says that's the way we follow it, and we're going to go that way and make sure that we get it through our own channels, our own sources. And he added, we are not going to confirm release of the hostages on the basis of wire service or other news reports.
Wes, as you know, President Carter and President-elect Reagan are on their way to the Capitol now. Having arrived there, they're driving into the back of the Capitol now for the beginning of that inauguration ceremony. Do you have indication at State that it will be Secretary of State Muskie that will actually make the announcement if it comes before noon, or perhaps even General Alexander Haig if it comes after noon?
Well, I have an idea at the moment, Les, since there are no definite plans for an official announcement as such to be made, to be broadcast, that what's going to happen is it's going to be a quickly typed up written statement, a short statement on the part of Muskie, probably in that sense. Now, there may be a briefing by Muskie and Secretary Miller and Attorney General Civiletti, but if that happens, it'll be in the afternoon when, by which time there'll be ex-officials here.
Thanks very much, Wes. Once again, the automobile carrying President Carter and President-elect Reagan has arrived at the Capitol on the Senate side in back of the area that the general public will be seeing, that where the inauguration will take place. We still have word that the hostages are at the airport in Iran. This is Les Woodruff in Washington.
And I'm Gil Gross at All News 88, WCBS News Time, 18 minutes after 11 o'clock. And again, the lead this hour is that the official Iranian Pars news agency says the American hostages are at the Tehran airport having tea, and their departure for Algiers is, according to Pars, imminent. They expect it sometime this half hour. One of the Algerian planes, according to one report, has already taken off. But if we're to believe the Pars news agency, it will be the second Algerian 727 that will carry the hostages out of Iran, and apparently that could be minutes from now. So stay with us at WCBS. This remarkable dovetailing of this event with the inauguration, possibly, according to some people, by plan. Remember, there had been reports out of Iran that Ayatollah Khomeini did not want President Carter to be at Wiesbaden, West Germany, to greet the hostages. With a release now, it seems that neither Mr. Reagan nor Mr. Carter will be at Wiesbaden, any chance of that, as they are both at the Capitol now preparing for the inauguration ceremonies, which, of course, we will also have live for you at All News 88. So it will be a busy and historical hour, and Stay with us for it. WCBS News Time is 11:19. A Princeton University chaplain who visited the hostages had some comments on their release, and John Matthew has that story.
Reverend William Kirby says mass celebrations should be staged to greet the return of the hostages, not just as a show of support, but to drain off the anger most Americans feel toward Iran. Says Kirby, many Americans are walking an emotional tightrope right now.
The anger is underneath right now, but it wouldn't take much to bring it to the surface.
And thus the call for joyous celebrations. Reverend Kirby, who met with the hostages during Christmas of 1979, says he also got a chance to speak with the Ayatollah Khomeini and other Iranian leaders. He says it took 14 months to end the hostage stalemate because the Iranians wanted assurances that the Chase Manhattan Bank and former Secretary of State Kissinger no longer held any influence in their country. Kirby says both the bank and Kissinger were supporters of the Shah's regime. This is John Matthew.
WCBS News Time, 20 minutes after 11 o'clock. The weather today is going to be cloudy in New York with a high temperature in the low 40s. Tonight it will be mostly to partly cloudy with a low temperature in the teens in the suburbs, mid-20s in the city. Tomorrow partly sunny, the high in the mid-30s. Tomorrow night partly cloudy, low again in the teens. And Thursday partly sunny with a high in the upper 30s. 39 degrees, 4 degrees Celsius, the humidity 55%. We have a northeast wind at 6 miles an hour now, the barometer 30.02 inches and rising. And remember that alternate side of the street parking rules are in effect today in New York City. Wall Street, New York Stock Exchange volume at 12,610,000 shares. The trading is active. The Dow Jones Industrial Average at 972.10. That is up by 1.11. The American Exchange, the volume 1,726,000 shares. The trading there active, and the Amex Market Index at 349.37. And that is up by 1.34.
If you or someone you love is over age 50, I urge you to get paper and pencil ready to respond to this announcement. Now, even though you are over 50, you can buy life insurance with no physical examination and no medical questions. If you are a male between 50 and 72, or a female between 50 and 75, you cannot be turned down for this plan. Premiums are just $6.95 a month, and your premium will never increase. This is Prime Life 50 Plus by Intra-America Life Insurance Company. Through its modified death benefit, Prime Life 50 Plus leads to the benefits of permanent life insurance regardless of your health. If you are age 50 or over, call now for free information in the mail.
For free information in the mail, you write to Insurance, WCBS New York, 10019, or you call 212-265-8100. WCBS News Time, 11:22. That feeling of nervous anticipation is in the air. We have the inauguration of a new president coming up this hour, and of course we have that report from the official Iranian Pars news agency that the American hostages are at the Tehran airport having tea and getting ready to board an Algerian 727 to leave. Also at the airport, we know Iran's chief hostage negotiator, Behzad Nabavi, is there. The Swiss ambassador to Iran, Eric Lang, is there. The Swiss represent American interests in Iran. And according to the Iranians, the hostages are there and could be leaving literally any moment now. And as we said earlier today, this is the first time that any of us can remember in American history an inauguration of an American president being upstaged by some other big historical moment. So be with us at News 88. As soon as something breaks, we will have it for you. But we are facing what could be a very dramatic announcement during the inauguration itself by either Mr. Carter or Mr. Reagan that the hostages have been released. Some local stories in the meantime. 5 fires over 3 hours in 3 northern New Jersey counties this morning. In Orange, New Jersey, 12 families evacuated from 3 buildings on Oakwood Place, and officials think arson is responsible for the big fire there. In Patterson, 10 people left homeless when a 4-alarm fire destroyed 3 buildings on 15th Avenue. There were 2 fires this morning in Clifton, one of which forced the evacuation of 4 families. And in Mendham Township, that's in Morris County, it took 4 hours to put out a fire on Cold Hill Road. The Mark Brumbaugh family of 4 escaping from that blaze. Yesterday, of course, there was a fire in a Midtown Manhattan hotel that injured 3 people, and News 88's Rich Lamb has that.
The fire at the Mansfield Hotel began with an explosion on the 6th floor. Flames spread rapidly along wooden floorboards and wall structures to the 7th floor and roof. For a few minutes, some residents leaned out of windows screaming for help, but firemen soon led them to safety. President Luis Torres says he was listening to a record when someone yelled fire and black smoke began to pour into his room.
Thank God that there's a fire escape next to my window. And I looked for my dog. My dog down there suffocated. And I took my wife and my friend and my dog, and I came out last.
Chief John Hart says a lack of standpipes inside the building complicated fighting the fire, but he says the building had a working fire alarm and sprinklers in the hallways, which may have saved many lives. This is Rich Lamb.
Police report that an early morning fire caused extensive damage to a yacht club in Glen Cove, Long Island today. We have no word yet on cause of that fire. WCBS News Time is 10:24, and again, the official Iranian Pars news agency says the American hostages have gone to Tehran airport, and their departure for Algiers is imminent. And we're standing by for the official word that the planes have taken off. We have had an unconfirmed report that one plane has left Algiers for Algiers from the Tehran airport, but we have no word on whether any of the hostages were indeed aboard that particular plane. That would still leave one Algerian 727 at Tehran airport, but the Iranians say that the American hostages will be leaving any moment now. Stay with us at All News 88. We also have coverage of the inauguration coming up. Indeed, we may be covering the story simultaneously for you. Governor Hugh Carey yesterday unveiled his proposed budget for the next fiscal year for New York. News 88's Walt Wheeler with reaction.
Some of the governor's key items: a state takeover of Medicaid costs beginning January 1982, a freeze on state revenue-sharing money to municipalities, and outside New York City, a requirement that local governments use the Medicaid cost reduction money to cut property taxes. City Hall says, on balance, all that sounds pretty good. And Special Deputy Controller Sidney Schwartz, the state's chief watchdog of the New York City fiscal recovery, tends to agree.
On balance, we think it's a good deal for the city.
The takeover of Medicaid costs, says Schwartz, should offset the possible cost in revenue sharing. City officials, however, say they will fight another aspect of the Carey plan, which involves the city footing part of the bill for welfare benefits increases he's proposing. This is Walt Wheeler.
WCBS News Time is 11:26. This bulletin into the News 88 newsroom, a Reuters report. A policeman at Tehran airport says the plane carrying the 52 American hostages has taken off from Tehran's Mehrabad airport. Again, this is unconfirmed, but from a policeman at Reuters who has told Reuters in Tehran that the plane carrying the 52 American hostages has taken off now from Tehran's Mehrabad airport. We will stay with that story for you at All News 88. We'll have an update on the hostage story in just a couple of minutes. We had been told that this could come any minute now, and indeed we do have this report from Reuters in Tehran that a policeman at the airport says that the plane carrying the 52 American hostages has now left the airport. There had been a great deal of activity at Mehrabad Airport in the last hour. Earlier we were told that one of the two Algerian 727s had already taken off. We could not get any kind of report, though, that the hostages were on that first plane. We knew, of course, something was happening because Behzad Nabavi, the chief hostage negotiator of Iran, was at the airport. Also, the official Iranian Pars news agency had said that the 52 hostages may very well leave in this half hour between 11 and 11:30. We also had the word that Eric Lang, whose country represents the American interests in Tehran, was at the airport, too. Iran had reported that the hostages were at the airport having tea, preparing for their takeoff for Algiers. Now, if this report from Reuters is true, if that plane is in the air, President Carter will have been denied his last message to the American people. Earlier, it had been thought that Mr. Carter would go live on American radio and television with word that the plane was in the air, that the hostages were out of Iran. Of course, right now, Mr. Carter is with Mr. Reagan at the Capitol preparing for the inauguration ceremonies, which we'll be carrying live for you in just a minute or so here at All News 88. We will have a hostage update before that, though. And it could very well be that the word from the President of the United States, either Mr. Carter or Mr. Reagan, may come from the inauguration scene at the Capitol. Stay with us at News 88 because history is being made at this moment. We will take a break for a message here, and then we'll return to our coverage. Would you like to improve your English grammar, pronunciation, or vocabulary? Get a pencil ready because Princeton Educational Productions is offering 3 audio cassettes to help you. The first cassette is a study of the 100 most common errors in English. The second is 200 commonly mispronounced words. The third is a vocabulary building cassette. Each of these 1-hour cassettes 1000 State Road, Princeton, New Jersey, 08540. Credit card buyers, phone area code 201. 888-377-9011. WCBS News Time is 11:29. Let's update what's going on for you. This is All News 88. I'm Gil Gross. The presidential motorcade has now arrived at the Capitol for noontime inauguration of Ronald Reagan as president. It is at that time Mr. Reagan will become the 40th president of the United States. But the event may be upstaged in an odd dovetailing of events. We have word from Reuters that they've been told by a policeman at Tehran's Mehrabat airport that a plane carrying the 52 American hostages has already taken off from the airport. And let's get a report on what's happening now with that.
This is a special report from CBS News. I'm Doug Poling in New York. The Associated Press, quoting a policeman at Tehran airport, says a plane carrying the 52 hostages has taken off from Tehran's Mehrabat airport. CBS News has been in contact with Tehran airport, and we are told that has not happened yet, that the hostages are still at the airport having tea in the VIP lounge. The official Iranian news agency Pars reports that the departure of the 52 Americans is imminent. In fact, it should have happened a half hour ago if a timetable given by the agency is correct. Pars said the hostages would be flown from Iran at 11 a.m. New York time. We've also learned that within the hour, an Iranian jet landed at the airport in Algiers, carrying what's believed to be members of the Algerian negotiating team. President-elect Reagan said late this morning the plane is at the end of the runway, adding, now we'll just have to wait until we know they are airborne. We don't know that for certain yet, but of course are awaiting the word. We've been able to follow many of the fast-breaking events in Iran via our listening post in London. CBS newsman Dan Raviv is standing by in London. Dan, what information do you have for us?
Doug, the schedule seems to have fallen back a little, but still, the hostages may go free before Ronald Reagan becomes president. A dispatch from Iran's official Pars news agency, received here at CBS News London half an hour ago, said, and I quote, "Formalities for the release of the American hostages are in process, and the hostages are waiting at Mehrabat Airport to leave Tehran in the next half an hour." In other words, right about now. The Iranian news agency has just informed CBS News that the two Algerian airliners that have been standing by at the airport have not yet taken off. And other sources at the airport agree. But their departure is expected at any minute. The lights at the airport have reportedly been specially turned on for the takeoffs. The airport is usually blacked out because of the war that Iran has been waging against Iraq since September. There's apparently a bit of a ceremony at the airport. Iran's top negotiators during the talks over the hostages, Behzad Nabavi and Ahmad Azizi, are there. And reporters who were at a roadblock several hundred yards away from the VIP terminal say they also saw the Swiss ambassador to Iran, Eric Lang, who represents American interests in Tehran, and the Algerian diplomats who've been acting as go-betweens in the negotiations. Doug?
CBS newsman Dan Raviv in London. 2 U.S. military medical planes are ready to take off from the American Rhein-Main air base near Frankfurt, West Germany. Those planes are to carry the Americans from Algeria to West Germany for several days or weeks of medical examinations. However, Tehran radio this morning said the hostages were checked over by the Algerian doctors in Iran for 12 hours and they're okay. Tehran radio saying it's not necessary for them to undergo any long stay at the U.S. hospital in Germany. Standing by in West Germany is CBS News correspondent John Sheehan. And John, what is happening now?
The sun has gone down and glaring banks of floodlights illuminate the frozen tarmac. The crews of those two DC-9 medical evacuation aircraft are still standing by, awaiting confirmation when the hostages are airborne out of Tehran. A short time ago, 6 cars pulled onto the tarmac here, carrying military police, German police officials, and U.S. Secret Service. Part of the security precautions and preparations now taking place for the arrival of Mr. Carter, now unofficially expected to arrive here in Germany tomorrow morning. John Sheehan on the tarmac at Rhein-Main.
And to recap, the Associated Press, quoting a policeman at Tehran airport, says a plane carrying the 52 American hostages has taken off from Tehran's Mehrabat airport. However, CBS News has been in contact with the airport. We are told that has not happened yet, that the hostages are still at the airport. I'm Doug Poling in New York, and this has been a special report from CBS News.
And I'm Gil Gross at All News 88. WCBS News Time is 11:34. And we will stay with the hostage story for you. As soon as we have it confirmed that the planes are off, we'll go back and have more on the hostage story. Any breaking story, of course, about the hostages we'll have for you. We'll also be going to Washington very soon for coverage of Mr. Reagan's inauguration. They are getting ready for that. Why don't we talk to Norm MacDonald here, as this, with all the live coverage, could be the last window we have to get a weather forecast in for a while. Norm, what do you see today?
Fair weather for the next couple of days, Gil, and by that I mean no extremes, which means the sky won't be completely clear. On the other hand, there won't be any precipitation, unfortunately. Temperatures will be seasonable. This afternoon it'll be turning a little colder as a cold front comes through, and that means mid-20s in the city, normal for this time of the year tonight, and upper teens in the suburbs west and north of the city.
Norm, we'll have to get back to you later. We're going to Washington now for live coverage of the presidential inauguration. CBS
Ronald
News in
Reagan
Washington.
will be the president. We believe in just a moment he'll be introduced here. President Carter and Mrs. Carter have already taken their seats in the places of honor in the semicircle which has been built atop a platform which is referred to as the presidential platform here on the western porch of the Capitol building. It's a bright day, slightly overcast, the temperature in the mid-50s. In a moment, we expect that the president-elect will be announced on the public address system. He will stride down some stairs and enter the muted sunlight here in a very crowded porch of people, including the senators, the Chief Justice and Justices of the Supreme Court, members of the House of Representatives. Let's listen.
President-elect of the United States, George Bush.
That, of course, is the introduction to the Vice President.